Good afternoon, everyone. And I hope you can see the presentation, right? So we are really here not just to make something that you can use at home using maybe a kind of waste, right? So it's also how can we make waste great again, right? And a little bit of introduction about the company that I'm coming from, right? We are known as Green Nudge, and we are really here to support businesses and communities, especially to how can we create a positive impact when it comes to environment, about awareness and things like that. So we do it through things like activities like beach cleanups, or say learning journeys, or even workshops like this to get people to really appreciate, right? And next, a little bit about myself. I'm Chun Yao. I'm the eco lead for Green Nudge. Besides that, I'm also very keen about how we grow our food. So I'll say I'm an urban farmer. And besides that, how can we also educate people to appreciate nature, right? So this is actually me over at an orphanage to reach out to the orphans there to teach them how to grow food on their rooftop garden. So what we got to learn for this session, right? Let us start off by discovering what is the waste issue in Singapore. And then we will learn about what is actually this eco-enzyme and how do we even go about applying it. And next, if some of you have, with you some materials, right? Let's see if we can do a bit of hands-on. If not, you can look at my demonstration, right? So what brings you here? So I hope, everyone who is joining this session may think about how you're feeling today and what exactly that you want to join our afternoon session, right? And maybe something about the environment, maybe about something that you want to reuse, right, at home. So since we are talking about waste and quite intimately about food also, so I thought it would be nice for us to even visit our past, right? To revisit our past when there's this interesting culture here, if you can see from the presentation, right? Like even the first picture, it says Orchard Road. Imagine Orchard Road, in a certain period of time, we even have something like some kind of food stores. And very interestingly, it's known as Glutton Square, right? And then there's also places like Hock Lam Street, Eu Tong Sen Street. So I'm going to show you actually, these photos are, of course, our hawker, right? Can we appreciate what our hawkers are doing? And not forgetting that you may start to think about when were these photos taken, right? And just to share with you, this was even taken in the 1970s. Imagine that, right? Orchard Road is still bustling with this kind of activity. We love our food. In the 70s, as the same thing for Hock Lam and the same thing for Eu Tong Sen. So you see how intimately we are connected with our food. But of course, following up next, you will also realize another story, another perspective to our food. And of course, before we go deep dive into what exactly is a waste landscape, I hope you have prepared some of these ingredients with you if you'd like to join the hands-on. So let us now talk about waste. So some of you might be curious, like how exactly our waste go about, right? How does it, like from the beginning, right? How it gets collected, say if you're staying in a HDB or private housing, or some of you who are in the schools, or say public areas like shopping mall, right? So usually this waste is collected by our public waste collectors. So you might have seen some of them, some of their vehicles going around our neighborhood, right? And from there, the waste, I hope that you might know that it actually separates into two streams, right? One which is recyclable, another one is what is commonly termed as general waste. So usually they come in, the bins would be in different colors. So especially like the blue bin, right? We know that this is for recycling. So however, right, looking at this a little bit small, right, the arrow, it shows that if the recyclable gets contaminated, it will end up as a general waste also. So from statistics, we understand that up to even 40% of the recyclables get contaminated. So do bear that in mind if you are doing recycling. And of course, if things get successfully being recyclable, right, we will actually send it to something known as a materials recovery facility. This is where actually all the different types of waste get to be sorted out, right? So if not, of course, it would be like the general waste. It goes to the incineration plants, right? So just to show you how it starts to go further down, right? If everything goes well, it should go to a recycling plant. If not, to let everybody know, actually most of our waste goes to the incineration plants, right? So of course, the good thing about incineration is that it really reduces the volume, right? And it may just produce some electricity along the way. But I think last but not least, something very important to show you is that after incineration, right, it actually goes to a landfill, right? Our one and only island known as Pulau Semakau. Yeah, so this is another, I think, very important information is that this is supposed to fill up by, say, 2045, right? But because of consumption and more waste, right, it has been revised to fill up by, say, 2035. So again, something that I think we should really be aware and probably take some action, right? So next, with the waste, the general waste that we got to know about, right? How about the food waste, right? How about the food waste that we might be generating, right? So from even like an article from the Straits Times, right? Just to borrow some statistics. So usually we like to know what exactly are the numbers, right? So as you can see, a family might essentially even waste up to, say, 52 plates of nasi lemak, right? Based on the 2019 news report. Yeah. So with that, of course, we are always interested to know, like, further dive into the statistics. So this is something quite interesting for some of you who like to look at numbers, right? So this is the statistics taken from NEA, right? And 2019, we actually have 744,000 tons of food waste, and only up to 80% gets to be recycled, right? And sometimes we also like to associate this kind of waste, especially for 2019, it is equivalent to 2 bowls of white rice per person per day. So imagine that if, even though you are doing nothing, but 2 bowls of white rice is already being wasted. And as we get to appreciate, right, over the recent number of years, right, like say, how about 2020? So looking at 2020, things have, I think, changed slightly, right? So from 744, we see that it's 665. So it seems like things have gone down a bit in terms of waste being generated. So of course, I would like the audience to start think about what exactly happened. How come we actually generated lesser food waste, right? And then let us look at the more current statistics. And wow, look at that, right? It's back to quite a high number. It's 817. So again, what happened? How come more food waste is being generated? Right, so let's think about what actually happened. And of course, when we even look into the specific, how about seafood, right? So we appreciate that even, think about it, when it's being processed, say in a wholesaler or in the sector where they are cleaning up, the fish and things like that, up to already 40% goes to waste, right? So imagine, how can we even do something about this? Besides that, of course, something that I think we all love, right? Fruits and vegetables, something very healthy, very good. And 50% already being wasted. Just could be at the wholesaler side or could be any part of the chain before it goes to, say, the supermarket, right? So that's actually quite a lot. So I'll share a bit more, right? Like what even out there could be some solution, right? And other than that, I think it's always interesting to look at even what are the other countries out there, right? So I think one of the interesting example I'd like to share would be, say, somewhere from maybe South Korea, right? I think we are always very familiar with the Korean wave and things like that, but how do they even treat their food waste, right? So it's interesting to realize that, wow, South Korea, they can actually recycle up to 95% of their food waste. Imagine that. Just now, based on the statistic that I shared, I think the closest we ever got was like 20%, right? But of course, interestingly, just to share with you this news, right, that even though they recycle their food very well, but even South Korea, they realize that, hey, things don't seem to be improving. We are still generating a lot of waste. So this bears to question, does recycling help? Or is there something more important, right, to cut down on the food waste being generated? So with that, of course, I mentioned about solution, right? Think about how can we do something, right? There's like, wow, so much food and it goes to waste. Of course, these are some actions we can probably do, right, as an individual. So this is again taken from NEA survey, right? So they have surveyed people out there to really see how they go about challenging this, right? So it's good that most people will realize that, oh, I got leftovers in my fridge. Can I do something about it? Can I like even think of new recipes, right? So it's good. Up to 71% are receptive to this. And next, of course, we realize that this is really a nation of, I'd say, foodies, right? We love our food. We go to hawker center, we go to the food malls. We got lots of lovely food. But of course, when we are dining out, can we consider about not having leftovers, right? Can we even think of like maybe communicate with the store owner and things like that, and to cut down on the amount of food before we order, right? So consider no leftovers. And next, this is something I would say also very important, right? If we cannot finish our food, can we consider, right, to take it away, to pack it away, right? So maybe in Singapore, this culture might not be so popular, right? But if you can do that, this would help. And of course, bonus points, right? If you can bring your own container, right, to BYO, to bring away the unfinished food. And of course, last but not least, something that could be a new concept, or I think some of you might have already seen it in the supermarket, right? Things like fruits or vegetables that like slightly not so perfect, maybe a bit of blemishes, and things, the color might be not that appealing, right? So this what we will term as ugly food or ugly fruits, right? So can we also appreciate that this is actually perfectly edible? And if some of you might have been to some of the supermarket, right? They might be even putting up on the shelf at a discount, right? So I think it's a win-win, right? We get food at a discount and it is perfectly edible, right? So this is something that as an individual we can do. And with this, I would like to share also, how do we even, I believe some of you would look at, say, the label, right? Especially if you buy something like say, something that is dry, or some kind of a food that has a lot of instructions, right? And usually it will come with labels, right? So we appreciate that even comes to labeling our food, right? It can be quite confusing. And because of that, I think a lot of consumers are also like, is this like edible? Should I keep or should I throw, right? And these are some of the more common labels out there, right? Something known as best before, right? So actually best before implies that the food is still edible, right? So best before that certain date, it doesn't mean that you cannot eat it. It's just that it may not smell as good, it may not taste as fresh, right? But it is still good. However, right, if you see a label that says use by, yes, this is really about safety, right? It's a use by date, it's an expiry date. It's a date that when it reaches that certain date, you don't want to be consuming the food. Yeah, so this is important, but best before can be confusing, and sometimes they even use other different terms. So I think, especially in the European countries, I think they are starting to realize that yes, this is confusing a lot of consumers, and they have decided that they should be dropping some of these labels and probably just stick with use by, right? So people will not end up wasting more food. So that's for labeling of food, right? And with that, of course, I like to showcase some of the I'll say platforms, right? So there are actually groups out there trying to tackle the waste issue. And something worth mentioning is Just Dabao. So you can check it out, this platform where they really care about, say, working with the eateries, working with small business owners, right, who are selling food, say, maybe as hawkers and things like that. How can they help to save all this food and also benefit the consumers, right? And usually this is at a very good discount. So I think this is a wonderful platform for that. And this is an interesting platform also. This is an app. And this app actually helps you to share right? Or you can also go to the platform to look for things that you may need. So it is a sharing platform. And I think the good thing about Olio is that it even has, if you don't mind sharing your location, right? It will just give an estimate of roughly where you are. It will let you know that, oh, who is staying nearby and may have things that I need, or who is staying nearby that may have one things that I can give to them, right? So this is, I think, very useful as an app. And of course, this is another interesting app and also platform. It is quite similar to Just Dabao. It's just that they try to target more towards the, I would say, high end, like say fine dining, hotel, restaurant. So imagine all the nice buffet from all these places. They try to tackle the waste issue from there. So again, it's a win-win, right? Businesses will not waste food and customers will get discounted food at a good price. So next, we have something known as 3 Dots. 3 Dots is also very interesting initiative. I think they also like started from the university. I think probably from SMU, right? So again, these gentlemen, they really want to tackle the food waste. And in this case, they realized about, just now as I mentioned, right, if you remember about the fish, right? So they look at all the meat items. They realize that interestingly, like chicken, like pork and different kind of meat also get wasted away because of the size and stuff like that. So they help to tackle this issue, and their platform would provide things like if you like to do group buys, I think they really give a very good discount for meat items. So that's 3 Dots. And of course, another platform, very interesting. It's called Makan Rescue. And before COVID, it was actually very useful because we do a lot of catering of food, right, at home or for parties and things like that. And this platform was actually very, very effective during that time. Yeah, but of course, I think because of the pandemic, I think it somehow affected the app. So it's no longer in operation, I believe. However, I think this is, again, a very good idea, right? How can we tackle our catering issue? So with that, of course, I like to just very quickly showcase that there are things like people out there in the community, right? Like SG Food Rescue, they try to rescue food from the wholesaler and they distribute to things like places like community fridges. And of course, individual also, I think very good, no? Individuals also realize that, oh, what can I do about the food waste? How can I help my surrounding, my neighborhood with all this rescued food? And I think another important part of the whole, trying to do something good to tackle food waste is, of course, what can we do about the policy side of things? So I think it's good. So I think we have an MP, right? This is Mr. Louis Ng. He also look at the policy side of things. How can we, like even talk about law, right? How can we help to move this forward by being supported by law? And I think this also gives businesses the confidence to do something about the food waste. So with that, I think I've covered a lot, right, on food waste and things that we can really do. And now let us look at what exactly is ecoenzyme, right? Ecoenzyme is a complex solution to a certain extent because of the fermentation process using actually very simple ingredients. We are just using kitchen waste, sugar and water, right? And it's usually dark brown and has a sweet sour smell. So you get to know why. And of course, it has a multi-purpose, various kind of application, so much so that it can be quite overwhelming. And if you'd like to know more about what exactly ecoenzyme is about, you can also research by keying in garbage enzyme, right? You can search for garbage enzyme, you can search for rubbish enzyme, or in Chinese, right, we call it 环保酵素, right? And of course, you might question, why would we want to make enzyme, right? This ecoenzyme. So this is really an alternative use, right, for the kitchen waste instead of throwing it away. And can we even use it, right? Especially for some of you, you may feel that, I don't want to use too much chemical at home. This is actually an alternative, right? So with that, of course, you reduce your reliance on all the conventional kind of chemicals for your cleaning at home. And not forgetting, right, if we would to reduce on our reliance on chemicals, I think that would really benefit, right, a lot to our larger environment, to our water resources, to to even how this pollution might get into our water system, right? So I think we really appreciate in Singapore, right, how well connected, right, our system that goes to our reservoir and provide us with clean water, right? So of course, you might start to be curious, like, oh, this ecoenzyme, can I actually drink it, right? So please don't attempt to drink the ecoenzyme, right? This is not for drinking, right? It is for applying, right? It's for application. For drinking, if you are interested, there are other things like fruit enzyme, right? There are other things like kombucha, right? And there are things like also the kefir grains that you can ferment for drinking, okay? So just for you to know, right? Please don't drink the ecoenzyme. And with that, let me introduce to you the basic ingredients, right? And to dive deeper into what exactly we need to prepare, right? When it comes to the water, the fruit peels, and of course the sugar, right? And of course, water, to start off with that is, please make sure that it's chemical free, right? Because we want to achieve free from chemical. And then water, if it contains some minerals, that'd be great, right? And of course, if you're using tap water, you might want to consider leaving it overnight. So some of you might be curious, why is there a need for that? So yeah, you may want to think about it, right? And of course, the best recommendation, maybe you can use rainwater, right? And when it comes to fruit peels, for a start, if you're new to making ecoenzyme, I would suggest that you want to use citrus peels, right? Orange, lime, lemon, grapefruit. Usually, this would impart a very nice smell, right? Very good for cleaning and pesticide. But if you're interested in, let's say you have a gardener, you're interested to use it as a fertilizer, that would be something else. I will let you know in a while, right? And of course, try to avoid any other ingredients that shouldn't be in the ecoenzyme. And for the sugar, right, we recommend that you use brown sugar, right? That's why the liquid is brown, because we are using brown sugar, right? Again, minerals. So all these minerals will help the fermentation process to make it better, right? And yes, with that, it encourages good bacteria and fermentation, right? So do use brown sugar if you can. And of course, another ingredient I think is very important. It's the container itself, right? So container, I hope that maybe you might have prepared something like this. So this is a good size, probably 1 liter to 1.5, right? And we recommend that you use plastic containers, because during the fermentation process, a lot of gas is being produced. So the plastic might help it to expand a little bit, right? And later I'll give you some instructions on how to even take care of it, right? So do consider using a plastic container instead, right? And you can reuse, right? So let us look at its application, right? As cleaning. If you're using it for cleaning, very simple, right? This table is just for your reference, right? You just have to dilute the completed enzyme with water, and then you can use it for wiping, for doing interesting different ways of cleaning it. You can use it to mop the floor and stuff like that, right? But of course, if you like to add more power to the cleaning, you could add baking soda, right? You can add baking soda. So for me, even I would use it for, say, clean the toilet bowl, right? I will just put some baking soda and then pour in the ecoenzyme. So it'll fizzle and let it sit for a while. It's actually very good to clean it, right? And of course, if you feel that, oh, I want to add a little bit of bubble and stuff like that, you might want to consider liquid detergent. So you can make, say, 50-50, right? 50% of, yes, I'll suggest that you might want to consider organic soap, right? Organic liquid soap with the ecoenzyme. So these are the ways that you can apply when it comes to cleaning. So next, let us look at it as a pesticide and fertilizer. So quite interesting, it's like quite a contrast. You're trying to kill something and yet you're trying to grow something at the same time, right? So very, very much the same as cleaning. You can simply just add it based on the requirement. If you want to use it as a fertilizer, as an insecticide, and so on and so forth, right? Mix it accordingly. So a tip from me, usually for me, of course, I would do 1:50, right? As a form of deterrent for pests. Right, say some of you might have aphids or mealybugs, you can try. Okay, so just have to put in a spray bottle and then spray it onto the leaves, right? And next, of course, is the fertilizer part where I mentioned, right, citrus peels is good for cleaning, but you might want to consider using other types of fruit peels for fertilizer. So as maybe you can see from the animation, right, it says banana enzyme. So in this case, actually, we are using the banana peels to make into a fertilizer, a liquid fertilizer for the plants. So I hope some of you start to form idea of what's so good about banana, right? So you might be able to identify, right? It actually contains potassium, right? So it's actually good for growth. So if you want to make it as use it as a fertilizer, please use banana peels, right? So all in all, not to overwhelm you, but there's so many ways to apply ecoenzyme, right? And if you're interested, you can easily actually find this online, right? It will give you a clue. And of course, I would suggest that you also try to experiment on your own, right? Because the fact is, ecoenzyme itself, as much as there are practitioners out there using it and found successes, right? The fact is, it hasn't been very much scientifically proven. Yeah, there's not a lot of science to this yet. However, I do understand that there are some institutions out there already starting to do research to see how effective ecoenzyme is in terms of its scientific properties, like chemicals. What are the chemicals that are useful, right, to make all this happen?